Bolton.
Thank you very much, Tom, and a Happy New Year to you. Well, the Sony hackers are threatening a major news organization. We're going to be asking our cybersecurity experts how viable another attack is. In an East meets West Facebook posting, potentially offensive material about Chinese officials putting Mark Zuckerberg's company in the hot seat. And if you're a hockey fan, you know that D.C. is hosting the January 1st Winter Classic between the Washington Capitals and the Chicago Blackhawks. The Risk and Reward team has a big bet on the outcome. Well, the hacking group, the Guardians of the Peace, have a new target. After wreaking havoc by stealing data from Sony, the group is threatening CNN. So here's the post. The result of investigation by CNN is so excellent that you might have seen what we are doing with your own eyes. We congratulate you on your success. CNN is the best in the world. P.S. You have 24 hours to give us the wolf. For his take on how serious this threat is, we bring in Shawn Henry. He is the CEO of Crowdstrike and a former executive assistant director at the FBI. Theresa Payton with us as well. She is the founder of Fortalice, and she is the former CIO, Chief Information Officer at the White House. And Mediaite's Joe Concha right beside me here in New York. So, Shawn, I want to start with you because the FBI is the one to make this threat public. So does that confirm to you that the FBI believes this threat is viable?
You know, I think the FBI oftentimes is going to release information to potential victims to advise them or to alert them to any potential risks or threats that they may face. If they've got a belief that this came from the same actors that targeted Sony, then certainly there is some level of credibility there. So,
Theresa, do you think that these are really the same hackers, or could this just be a prank?
You know, it's possible that it is a copycat or a prank, but the fact that the FBI put a bulletin out warning companies over a holiday, basically get your A-team back in and get serious about this threat, says that there may be some substance behind it, and companies need to take it seriously.
Okay, so bringing you in, Joe, on companies need to take it seriously comment, why CNN?
Well, that's the odd part about this. And that's why I think I'm leaning towards more this is a prank, this is amateur hour, because CNN didn't break any news around the Sony story that would make them a particular target. No real news organization did. They reported it, but they didn't break anything in terms of who may be behind this. The question around 24 hours or give us the wolf, clearly that's a reference to Wolf Blitzer.
Sure.
Why Wolf Blitzer? Maybe the ransom for Jake Tapper is too high. It doesn't make a heck of a lot of sense here. It sounds, again, like this is nothing more than a prank just because of the rhetoric that's around it.
Okay, so I want to send it back to D.C. and Shawn, bring you in. And Theresa, I'm going to ask you the same question, actually. Has the administration, has the FBI made a mistake in calling out North Korea right away for the Sony hack? Because there's a lot of cybersecurity experts now saying it looks like an inside job. Shawn, what do you think?
Well, I think that the cybersecurity experts, I'm not sure exactly what evidence they may have looked at. I know, having run this part of the operation within the Bureau, that this is not just the FBI looking at evidence, at forensic analysis on the actual network, but this is a much broader U.S. intelligence community assessment based on a whole host of intelligence, much of which will never be revealed to the American public. There likely are foreign partners who are involved as well in that assessment. And I can tell you that at CrowdStrike, we actually looked at the indicators that were put forth, and we also believe it's likely that it was North Korea. So it's not just, this is a much broader assessment. While there certainly are some skeptics, understandably, I think you've got to look at the totality of the intelligence, and many folks will just not have access to that type of intelligence.
So, Theresa, what is your take on that issue? And we understand that maybe even the Sony CEO is going to be pulling out of some press events. There's CES, which takes place in a few weeks. But what is your take? Was the FBI too aggressive too early in saying it was North Korea?
You know, what's interesting is most of the cases that I've worked on with the FBI, they're usually the ones saying, let's not jump to conclusions. And they're very careful before they point the finger either at a cyber criminal syndicate or at a country. And so I have to believe they must have seen evidence, which is going to probably remain classified, that says proof positive that North Korea had a hand in this. Now, the question could be, the answer might be that this isn't all of the above. So they may have had insider help And that could be why they got away with so much data before any alarms went off. And it could be they hired cyber mercenaries for hire around the globe that helped them carry out this dastardly deed at Sony.
So, Joe, bringing you back in for the media angle, that's what our cybersecurity experts are telling us. But as you point out, there's no news organization that necessarily has been out in front of another with this story.
That's correct. But still, if I'm CNN, if I'm Fox, if I'm any news organization, I'm very wary. Because if you hack a news organization, what's important about that is, yeah, do we want to see what Piers Morgan was saying right before he got fired about XYZ? Sure, that's entertaining. But sources could be burned. The types of sources that give you information about ISIS, Al-Qaeda, overseas type of developments. If that information gets out, then that's an Ed Snowden type of situation where people's lives could be in jeopardy. So, yeah, get those A-teams back in as far as the IT groups and get those firewalls extra sturdy, because this could be a legitimate threat. You should take all of them seriously, no matter how comical this one appears to come across.
Right, and even to your point, even if this one does end up being shown as a prank, it's still a heads up.
Err on the side of caution, Deirdre.
Yeah, and there's a lot of people who have said, Shawn, bringing you back in, Sony, in fact, releasing a statement saying something like 90% of U.S. companies would have been vulnerable in the same way that Sony was. Do you think the number is that high, Shawn?
Yeah, I think actually the FBI said that, but the number I don't think is high. I think the fact is, and a big takeaway from this particular event is that American businesses need to understand that the internet and the technology that they reside on is extremely susceptible to these types of attacks. And we're moving merely from the theft of credit cards, which gets a lot of publicity. It goes beyond that to research and development and intellectual property, but to actual destructive behavior. Companies need to understand that they absolutely are vulnerable. They need to use technology to better detect these types of attacks. They need to be proactive and look internally in their networks for indicators that they're under attack, because the impact of something like this can be devastating. So there has to be a takeaway. We've had a watershed moment here.
Theresa, your last thoughts?
Get an outside group to hack your company. And I think all companies, regardless of industry, not just the news industry, these hackers have been emboldened. And if there are no repercussions for these hackers, they may come for your company next. So you need to be practicing a digital disaster, have an outside group hack you, tell you your threats and vulnerabilities before cyber criminals do it for you.
Sounds like extremely solid advice. Thank you very much, Theresa Payton and Shawn Henry. And here in New York, Joe Concha of Mediaite. Thank you very much. Well, staying with sensitive material, it is an East meets West Facebook posting. A prominent Chinese dissident writer's account is making waves. The Chinese-born writer lives in Berlin. He posted a picture of a friend who happened to be pretty much naked in Stockholm, Sweden. Now, Facebook took down the photo in accordance with its no nudity policy. Joe Kent with me now with the details. So, Joe, the writer is saying that Facebook should be able to tell the difference between political statement / artistry and vulgarity.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And Liao actually got a simple form letter from Facebook saying that his account had been suspended. And what is really interesting here is we know that Facebook has a no nudity policy. The company has denied any political motives, but the argument here is about expression, and it's all about the timing. This is the issue because just not too long ago, a prominent Tibetan activist also posted a video of a monk who was setting himself on fire in protest and committing suicide.